The bus came to a creaky halt at a lonely, unnamed stop in the middle of nowhere. The air was heavy with the scent of wild grass and dust, and the view offered nothing but an endless stretch of dirt road winding toward an uncertain horizon. Olivia stepped down first, gripping the handle of a worn suitcase, while her daughter Mia clung to her side, her bright eyes scanning the empty landscape. "Mom, is this the right stop? Where's the village?" "I don't see any houses," Mia asked, her voice tinged with confusion and apprehension. Olivia hesitated, her heart pounding. Was this where her new life was supposed to begin? Could this barren setting promise a fresh start after the storm of heartbreak, betrayal, and loss she had barely survived? The driver, a stout man with a reassuring tone, interrupted her thoughts. "This is it. Just follow that dirt road, and you'll find the village. It's a short walk," he said, pointing ahead. Olivia nodded, masking her doubt with a forced smile. She glanced at Mia, who looked back at her with unwavering trust, and for a moment, Olivia felt the weight of their journey. For grueling hours on the road, the remnants of her life packed in 2 battered suitcases, and a fragile hope that this move would finally bring peace to their lives. Little did Olivia know, the road ahead held more than just a tiny village. It carried the weight of mysteries yet to be uncovered, people who would challenge her resilience and choices that would shape the future for both her and Mia. As the bus roared off, leaving a cloud of exhaust behind, Olivia took a deep breath and looked down the path that awaited them. "Well, Mia," she said, "shall we see what this place has in store for us?" Curious about what lies ahead for Olivia and Mia? Subscribe to our channel now to follow their journey of survival, hope, and the unexpected turns that await them in a small, forgotten village. Stay with us for heartwarming stories that remind us of the beauty of starting over. The dirt road stretched endlessly before Olivia and Mia, with only the faint sound of the wind rustling through the tall grass to accompany their steps. Each stride was weighed down by the exhaustion of their journey and the uncertainty of their destination. The late afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the landscape, but its beauty did little to soothe Olivia's racing thoughts. Mia, her tiny legs trudging beside her mother, broke the silence. "Mom, are we going to be okay here? What if the house is small? Or what if there's no house at all?" Her voice trembled with a mixture of worry and curiosity. Olivia stopped and crouched down to meet her daughter's gaze. Despite her uncertainty, she smiled, brushing a stray curl from Mia's forehead. "We'll be fine, sunshine. This is our new beginning, remember? We'll make it a home no matter how big or small the house is." Together, Mia nodded, her faith in her mother unwavering, and they resumed their walk. But after a few minutes of trudging uphill, the weight of the suitcases began to overwhelm Olivia. Beads of sweat dotted her forehead as she set the bags down with a groan, her legs trembling from exertion. "Mom, let me help," Mia offered eagerly, trying to lift one of the bags, but she found it too heavy for her tiny hands. Olivia smiled through her fatigue. "You're strong, but I think this one's got me beat, too," she joked, ruffling Mia's hair. As Olivia gathered her strength to continue, a low rumble in the distance caught her attention. She straightened up, straining to identify the source. The sound grew louder, accompanied by the unmistakable hum of an approaching vehicle. A bright yellow taxi emerged from the bend, kicking up a cloud of dust as it sped toward them. Olivia stared in disbelief. A taxi? Out here? Who would need a cab in such a remote place? The vehicle slowed and came to a halt beside them. A man in his late 30s, with kind eyes and a warm smile, leaned out the driver's window. "Need a ride to the village?" he asked, his voice calm and steady. Olivia hesitated, instinctively glancing at Mia, who looked back at her with equal uncertainty. But the driver seemed genuine, and the prospect of carrying those suitcases up the hill any further was daunting. "Thank you," Olivia said finally, her voice tinged with relief. The driver, who introduced himself as James, quickly loaded their suitcases into the trunk and held the passenger door open for Olivia and Mia. "Climb in. It's not far, but the walk can be rough," he said. As the taxi rumbled to life, Olivia struck up a conversation to ease the awkwardness. "Do you always drive out here, James?" she asked, glancing out the window at the vast fields rolling past. James nodded. I deliver medicines to the paramedic station in the village. It's a small operation, but they rely on me to stock them. It's a shame. There's only one doctor, and he's well past retirement age. Olivia's curiosity piqued. A paramedic station? In such a small village? James laughed lightly. Surprising, isn't it? But it's a lifeline for the people here. The nearest hospital is hours away, and transportation is a luxury most can't afford. As he spoke, Olivia found herself admiring his sense of purpose. Here was a man who didn't just see a job. He saw a chance to make a difference. The taxi crested a hill, and the village appeared. A quaint settlement nestled among golden fields. James pointed to a house on the outskirts, marked by a weathered gate and a red cross painted boldly on its front. That's your stop, he said, his tone shifting to one of hesitation. Olivia leaned forward, her heart sinking as she took in the sight. The house wasn't just hers. It was also the paramedic station James had mentioned. James stopped the taxi at the gate, unloaded the suitcases, and knocked loudly on the door. Olivia stood frozen, her mind racing. What did this mean? Was the house truly hers? Or was this some mistake? The door creaked open, revealing a stern-looking woman in a white medical coat. She eyed Olivia and Mia with a mixture of suspicion and irritation. James, who are these people? The woman demanded. They're here for the house, James explained, gesturing to Olivia. I thought I'd give them a ride since they were walking with all that luggage. The woman, Brooke, as James called her, frowned. The house? Are you sure about that? This is the medical station. Olivia, sensing the tension, stepped forward. I inherited this house from a relative, she said, pulling out the notarized will from her bag. I wasn't aware it was being used as a medical facility. Brooke took the documents reluctantly, scanning them with a sharp gaze. Well, it's divided into two halves, she said curtly. One side is the medical station, and the other is living quarters. The doctor uses it because his house burned down years ago. At that moment, an elderly voice called from inside. Brooke, who's at the door? Has James brought the medicine? Brooke rolled her eyes but stepped aside, motioning for Olivia and Mia to enter. They followed hesitantly, dragging their suitcases across the threshold. Inside, the air was filled with the scent of antiseptics and the faint hum of medical equipment. The voice belonged to Dr. Matthews, a frail man in his 80s, sitting in an armchair with a warm but weary expression. Welcome, he said kindly, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. So, you're the new owners of this house? Olivia nodded, still clutching the documents. I had no idea the house was being used this way, she admitted. I'm sorry for the confusion. Dr. Matthews waved her apology away. No need for that. This house had been empty for years before we set up the station. This village would have no medical care if it weren't for your relative's generosity. Brooke stood silently in the corner as they spoke, her expression unreadable. James had already left, and Olivia suddenly felt the total weight of their situation. Dr. Matthews' kind demeanor eased her nerves slightly. We'll figure things out, he said. For now, make yourselves at home. I'm sure this is as much a surprise to you as it is to us. Olivia smiled faintly, grateful for his understanding. But as she glanced around the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that their arrival had stirred more than just surprise. It had awakened tension and hidden stories that would soon unravel. As the evening settled over the village, Olivia unpacked their few belongings in the modest room Dr. Matthews had allocated them. The small room was neat and warm, with a window overlooking the fields bathed in the golden hues of the setting sun. Mia, ever curious, sat on the edge of the bed, her legs swinging. Mom, are we going to live here forever? She asked, innocent eyes searching her mother's face. Olivia paused, running her hand over the worn suitcase. I don't know, sweetheart. For now, this is where we need to be. But forever? She smiled gently. We'll see where life takes us. Mia seemed satisfied with the answer, but Olivia's thoughts lingered on the day's events. The house, her supposed inheritance, was not just a home but a lifeline for the village. And yet, the space didn't feel entirely hers. Brooke's visible hostility, Dr. Matthews' frailty, and the lingering question of her role here. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Brooke entered without waiting for an invitation, her arms crossed. "Dr. Matthews asked me to bring you some bedding," Brooke said curtly, placing the bundle on the small table. Her tone was professional, but her eyes betrayed a simmering resentment. "Thank you," Olivia replied, her voice calm. She didn't want to escalate whatever tension Brooke seemed to harbor. Brooke lingered momentarily, her gaze darting to Mia, who was now flipping through a worn picture book. "This isn't exactly a place for kids," she said, almost to herself. Olivia straightened. "It's not ideal, but it's what we have right now. We'll manage." Brooke shrugged, then turned to leave. At the door, she paused. "You know, the house wasn't used for years. This place would have fallen apart if it weren't for Dr. Matthews. Don't expect anyone to welcome you with open arms." Before Olivia could respond, Brooke was gone, leaving behind an air of hostility that seemed almost personal. Later that evening, after Mia had fallen asleep, Olivia sat at the small desk in their room, staring out the window. The village was quiet, save for the occasional bark of a dog or the distant sound of a cowbell. Her thoughts drifted back to the notary's office, where she had first learned of the inheritance. Douglas Harper, a patient she had cared for during his final days, had been a quiet man with an unshakable dignity. Despite his failing health, he had shared stories of his childhood in the village, speaking of the house with nostalgia and regret. It had been his family's home for generations, but life had pulled him away, leaving it abandoned. "You have a good heart, Olivia," he had told her one evening. "Not everyone sees people like me as more than just a patient. I want you to have the house. Start fresh. Build a life for you and your little one." His words had been a balm during her darkest days, but now, sitting in the very house he had bequeathed her, Olivia felt the weight of his trust. She resolved to honor it, even if the path ahead was uncertain. The following day, Olivia woke to the sound of bustling activity. Through the thin walls, she could hear the murmurs of patients and the clinking of medical tools. The paramedic station was already in full swing. After a quick breakfast with Mia, Olivia entered the main hall, where Dr. Matthews attended to a patient with Brooke's assistance. The elderly doctor looked up and waved her over. "Good morning, Olivia. I was hoping you'd join us today," he said, his voice warm but tired. Olivia hesitated. "I didn't want to intrude." "Nonsense," Dr. Matthews replied. "We could use the help. Brooke has her hands full, and I'm not as spry as I used to be." Brooke shot Olivia a glance that was anything but welcoming, but Olivia ignored it. Rolling up her sleeves, she stepped into the makeshift clinic. The morning passed in a blur of activity. Olivia quickly fell into her element, examining patients, prescribing treatments, and offering the kind of attentive care that had once made her a respected doctor in the city. Despite the limited resources, she found herself energized by the work. By midday, even Brooke couldn't deny Olivia's competence. The nurse begrudgingly acknowledged her instructions, and for the first time, there was a semblance of teamwork between them. During a brief lull, Dr. Matthews pulled Olivia aside. "You're a natural," he said, his kind eyes twinkling. "The patients already trust you. It's been long since I've had someone to share the load with." Olivia smiled, a flush of pride warming her cheeks. "Thank you. It feels good to be useful again." Dr. Matthews' expression turned serious. "This village needs you, Olivia. There's so much work to be done here, and I won't be able to do it forever. But I need to know, are you ready for this? It's not an easy life." Olivia hesitated. The weight of his words settled over her like a heavy blanket. She thought of Mia, the challenges they had already faced, and the life they had left behind. But then she thought of Douglas Harper's wish for her, the patients who had come through the doors that morning, and the sense of purpose she had felt for the first time in years. "I'm ready," she said finally. Dr. Matthews smiled, a look of relief washing over his face. "Good. Then welcome to the team." Olivia sat on the porch with Mia as the day wound down, watching the sun dip below the horizon. With its quiet rhythms and simple beauty, the village was beginning to feel like a place where they could belong. "Mom," Mia said, leaning on Olivia's shoulder, "I think I like it here." Olivia wrapped an arm around her daughter, a small smile on her lips. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." Little did they know the challenges ahead would test their resolve in ways they couldn't imagine. Olivia's second week at the paramedic station started with a subtle shift in dynamics. While Dr. Matthews continued to guide her with unwavering kindness, Brooke's resentment simmered beneath the surface. Though Brooke followed Olivia's instructions when assisting her with patients, her tone was clipped and her gestures deliberate, as though she were silently protesting the new hierarchy. It wasn't long before Olivia overheard whispers among the villagers. "Brooke's always been the one running things," one patient murmured. "She's not used to sharing the spotlight." Olivia brushed off the comments. She wasn't here to steal anyone's role or compete with Brooke. Her sole focus was providing care and creating stability for Mia. But Brooke's actions made it clear she didn't see things the same way. One afternoon, after Olivia had successfully stitched a farmer's wound, a task Brooke had insisted on handling, Brooke cornered her in the supply room. "You know," Brooke began, her voice low but cutting, "I've been doing this long before you showed up. The people here trust me. They don't need some outsider waltzing in and taking over." Olivia paused, meeting Brooke's icy glare with calm resolve. "I'm not here to take anything from you, Brooke. We're on the same team. The village needs both of us to make this work." Brooke scoffed. "Let's see how long that lasts." Despite the tension, Olivia found solace in her growing connection with James. Their paths often crossed during his medicine deliveries, and their conversations became a welcome reprieve from the challenges of her new role. One evening, James offered to walk Olivia and Mia home after a long day at the clinic. James opened up about his life as they strolled through the quiet village streets, illuminated by the faint glow of fireflies. "I wasn't always a cab driver," he admitted, his voice tinged with pride and sadness. "I used to work in construction, but after my sister and her husband passed, I had to raise my nephew, Tommy. Driving a cab gave me the flexibility to take care of him." Olivia glanced at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his tone. "That's a lot to take on. You must love him very much." James smiled softly. "He's my family. I couldn't let him end up in an orphanage." Their conversation lingered in Olivia's mind long after they parted ways. James' dedication to his nephew mirrored her struggles to provide for Mia. It was a quiet reminder that they were both navigating life's challenges, trying to build something better for the ones they loved. The following week brought an unexpected crisis to the village. A sudden severe flu outbreak swept through the settlement, overwhelming the paramedic station. Patients filled the small waiting area, their coughs and fevered murmurs creating an atmosphere of worry. Dr. Matthews, though determined to help, was visibly strained. His trembling hands made simple tasks challenging, and Olivia quickly stepped in to take the lead. "Brooke," Olivia called, "we'll need more supplies. Can you inventory what we have left and list what James should bring on his next trip?" Brooke hesitated, her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, Olivia thought she might refuse, but then she nodded and set to work. The days that followed were a blur of long hours and sleepless nights. Olivia worked tirelessly, administering 4 fluids, managing medications, and ensuring patients were comfortable. Though reluctant, Brooke gradually fell into step, her expertise proving invaluable during the crisis. As Olivia prepared to leave one evening, Brooke approached her with an uncharacteristically subdued expression. "You did well today," she said, her voice lacking its usual edge. Olivia smiled faintly. "We all did. It's a team effort." Brooke nodded but didn't respond. Though fragile, the unspoken truce between them felt like a step forward. The village seemed to breathe a sigh of relief as the flu outbreak began to subside. One by one, patients recovered and returned to their daily lives, their gratitude evident in their kind words and small gestures. A basket of fresh eggs left on Olivia's porch, a jar of homemade jam from a grateful farmer's wife. One evening, James invited Olivia and Mia to join him and Tommy for dinner at his modest home on the edge of the village. The meal was simple, roasted chicken and freshly baked bread, but the warmth of their conversation made it feel like a feast. As the children played in the yard, James turned to Olivia. "You've done a lot for this village in such a short time," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "It's like you were meant to be here." Olivia met his gaze, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "I'm not sure about that," she admitted. but I do know I feel at peace here. For the first time in a long time, James smiled. Sometimes life takes us exactly where we need to be, even if we don't realize it right away. Later that night, as Olivia tucked Mia into bed, her daughter looked up at her with sleepy eyes. "Mom," Mia whispered, "I think Mr. James likes you." Olivia laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair from Mia's forehead. "Good night, Mia," she said, avoiding the comment. But as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Olivia couldn't help but wonder if her daughter's innocent observation held more truth than she was ready to admit. The challenges Olivia faced in the coming weeks would test her in ways she hadn't yet imagined, but they would also bring her closer to finding the home and the life she never thought possible. As Olivia continued to settle into her role at the paramedic station, Brooke's resentment, though subdued during the flu crisis, began to resurface. It was initially subtle, minor complaints about misplaced supplies or veiled remarks about Olivia's methods. But soon, her efforts to undermine Olivia became more pointed. One afternoon, Olivia noticed a group of villagers whispering near the station's gate. Their glances toward her were cautious, almost suspicious. She approached them with her usual warmth, but their responses were hesitant. Later that day, Dr. Matthews pulled Olivia aside, concern etched into his lined face. "Olivia, I don't mean to alarm you, but there's been talk in the village. Rumors that you're planning to close the station and turn this house into a private practice. Do you know anything about this?" Olivia's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? Of course not. This station is vital to the community. Why would I ever do such a thing?" Dr. Matthews sighed, his gaze heavy with understanding. "I didn't believe it either, but these things have a way of spreading. Be careful, Olivia. Someone might be trying to turn the villagers against you." Olivia's mind immediately turned to Brooke. It wasn't a leap to suspect her. After all, Brooke's disdain for her had been evident from the start. But Olivia also knew confronting her directly could backfire. Instead, she focused on her work and let her actions speak louder than rumors. A few days later, Olivia found herself alone in the station late at night, organizing patient files. The quiet was interrupted by a knock at the door. She opened it to see James, his face unusually serious. "I thought you should know," he began, stepping inside. "Brooke's been talking to some villagers, stirring up doubts about you. She's saying you're here to take over and don't care about the community." Olivia's heart sank. Why would she do that? Doesn't she realize we're all here for the same reason? James shrugged, his expression sympathetic. "Jealousy, maybe, or fear of change. Either way, you need to be prepared. People trust you, Olivia, but they also trust Brooke. You'll have to prove that your intentions are genuine." Olivia nodded, determination hardening her resolve. She wouldn't let Brooke's insecurities sabotage what she was building, for herself, Mia, and the village. The following week brought an opportunity for Olivia to prove herself. A young boy named Ethan was brought into the station with a high fever and difficulty breathing. His parents, visibly panicked, pleaded for help. Dr. Matthews, though eager to assist, was visibly overwhelmed. "I'll handle it," Olivia said firmly, stepping forward. She scrutinized Ethan, diagnosing him with a severe respiratory infection that required immediate intervention. Using the limited equipment available, Olivia stabilized Ethan and monitored him closely throughout the night. Despite her visible reluctance, Brooke worked alongside her, assisting with the treatments. By morning, Ethan's condition had improved significantly. His parents, grateful beyond words, embraced Olivia, tears streaming down their faces. "You saved him," Ethan's mother said, her voice trembling. "We don't know how to thank you." Word of Olivia's efforts spread quickly through the village. Patients who had previously hesitated to approach her now sought her out with newfound trust. Even Brooke seemed unable to ignore the growing respect Olivia was earning. Later that week, the village chairman visited the station to thank Olivia for her dedication. As they spoke, Brooke lingered nearby, her expression unreadable. But Brooke abruptly left the room when the chairman praised Olivia's work and hinted at expanding the station's resources. That evening, Olivia found Brooke sitting alone on the station's porch, staring at the darkening sky. For a moment, Olivia considered leaving her be, but something in Brooke's posture, A mix of frustration and defeat compelled her to approach. "Brooke," Olivia began gently, "can we talk?" Brooke didn't respond immediately. When she finally looked at Olivia, her eyes were filled with an emotion Olivia hadn't expected: regret. "I've been unfair to you," Brooke admitted, her voice quiet. "When you came here, I felt everything I'd worked for was being removed. But you've proven you care about this place. About the people." Olivia sat beside her, the tension between them easing slightly. "I understand how you felt, Brooke. Change is hard, especially when you're losing something important. But I'm not here to take anything from you. I want us to work together." Brooke nodded slowly, though her expression remained guarded. "Maybe we can try that." It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a start. The breakthrough with Brooke was a turning point for Olivia. Their collaboration improved over the next few weeks, and the station began running more smoothly than ever. Brooke's lingering jealousy didn't disappear entirely, but it was tempered by a growing respect for Olivia's competence and dedication. Meanwhile, Olivia and James continued to grow closer. Their shared commitment to the village created a bond that deepened with each passing day. James' nephews, Tommy and Mia, became fast friends, their laughter filling the air during weekend outings by the river or quiet evenings at James' home. One evening, as they sat by the fire after dinner, James turned to Olivia with a question that caught her off guard. "Have you ever thought about staying here permanently?" he asked, his tone casual but eyes searching hers. Olivia hesitated, the weight of the question settling over her. "I don't know. I've always considered this a temporary stop, a place to rebuild before moving on. But it's starting to feel like home." James smiled. "Maybe that's because it is." As Olivia reflected on his words, she realized that her time in the village had given her something she hadn't felt in years: a sense of belonging. The challenges, the triumphs, and even the conflicts had all been part of a journey reshaping her life in ways she hadn't anticipated. But she also knew the path ahead wouldn't be without its struggles. And as she gazed into the flickering firelight, she resolved to face whatever came next with the same courage and determination that had brought her this far. Life in the village settled into a rhythm, but the peace Olivia had found was soon disrupted by an unexpected visitor, Neil. He arrived unannounced, his polished city demeanor starkly out of place in the humble surroundings of the village. Olivia spotted him standing at the station's gate, a smug smile on his lips. His sight sent a chill down her spine, memories of his betrayals flooding back. She clutched the edge of the reception desk, willing herself to remain composed. "Neil," she said as she stepped outside, her voice steady but cold. "What are you doing here?" He adjusted the cuffs of his designer shirt, clearly uncomfortable in the rural environment. "Olivia, I've come to talk. You've been avoiding my calls, and I needed to see you." "There's nothing to discuss," she replied, crossing her arms. Neil's gaze flickered to the house behind her, then to the station's modest facilities. "So this is where you ended up? A backwater village, playing nursemaid? I expected better from you." Olivia felt the heat rise in her cheeks, but refused to take the bait. "This backwater village has given me more purpose than I ever found with you," she said, her voice firm. Neil smirked, unfazed. "I came to offer you a deal. You know your alimony decision was rash. I'm willing to renegotiate, under certain conditions." Olivia's stomach churned. She knew Neil well enough to sense ulterior motives. "What conditions?" "You return to the city, work under me again, and let me oversee Mia's education. She deserves better than this lifestyle." Olivia's jaw tightened. "Mia is thriving here, Neil. She doesn't need your interference." Before Neil could reply, James appeared at the gate, his presence a quiet but powerful statement of solidarity. "Is there a problem?" he asked, calm but edged with a warning. Neil glanced at James, sizing him up, then turned back to Olivia. "I see you found a replacement already," he said with a sneer. "Suit yourself, Olivia, but don't come crawling back when this falls apart." With that, Neil turned and walked away, leaving a mix of relief and lingering anger in his wake. James stepped closer, concern etched on his face. "Are you all right?" Olivia nodded, though her voice wavered slightly. "I'm fine. Just another ghost from the past trying to stir up trouble." James hesitated, then placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're stronger than he thinks, Olivia. Don't let him get to you." Soon after Neil's visit, another challenge arose, one that threatened the entire village. Heavy rains swept through the region, turning dirt roads into rivers of mud and cutting off access to the outside world. Supplies ran low, and the paramedic station became a lifeline for the isolated community. Olivia, James, and Brooke worked tirelessly to keep the station running. Though limited by his health, Dr. Matthews provided guidance and support wherever he could. One evening, as the rain pounded against the station's roof, a knock at the door startled Olivia. She opened it to find a farmer, soaked to the bone, cradling his unconscious wife. "She collapsed while we were trying to save the livestock," he said, his voice thick with worry. Olivia sprang into action, directing Brooke to prepare the examination room. The woman's condition was critical, severe hypothermia combined with a suspected infection. Over the next several hours, Olivia worked with unrelenting focus, using every resource to stabilize the patient. James, despite his lack of medical training, helped fetch supplies and offer words of comfort to the anxious farmer. By dawn, the woman's condition had improved. The farmer, his voice trembling with gratitude, thanked Olivia. "You saved her life," he said, tears streaming down his weathered face. The event reinforced Olivia's commitment to the village. It wasn't just a place to escape her past. It was a community that relied on her and gave her a profound sense of belonging. The crisis brought Olivia and James even closer. Their long hours together at the station and shared moments of vulnerability deepened their bond. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the rain finally subsided, James spoke with quiet conviction. "You know, Olivia," he began, "I didn't think much about the future before. I focused on getting through each day for Tommy's sake. But now, I see something more. Something better." Olivia turned to him, her expression softening. "Me too," she admitted. Their relationship, though still unspoken, was becoming undeniable. The connection they shared wasn't just about mutual support. It was the foundation of a partnership built on trust, respect, and the desire to create a better life. As the rain subsided and the village began to recover, Olivia reflected on how far she had come. She had arrived broken and uncertain, but her challenges had forged her into someone stronger, ready to embrace the life she was building. But as she looked toward the future, Olivia knew that her journey wasn't over. The village still needed her, and there were more battles to fight, not just for herself and Mia, but for the community that had become her home. The village had begun to feel like a second skin to Olivia. She moved through her days with purpose, her confidence growing as she faced each new challenge with determination. The community's trust in her was solidified because of her medical skills and the care and respect she showed everyone who came through the station doors. Brooke, though still guarded, had softened considerably toward Olivia. Their partnership, once fraught with tension, evolved into one of mutual respect. Brooke had even begun opening up during their late-night shifts, revealing glimpses of vulnerability that Olivia had never expected. "You know," Brooke said one evening as they organized supplies, "I used to think this place was all I had, but now I see that maybe it's not about memorizing what's familiar. It's about what you can give to others." Olivia smiled at the admission, grateful for the change in their dynamic. "You've given so much to this village, Brooke. Don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you otherwise." The two women shared a quiet moment of understanding, their past animosity fading into the background. Meanwhile, Olivia and James' relationship continued to deepen. Their evenings together became a source of joy, not just for them but for Mia and Tommy, who had grown inseparable. The four often spent weekends exploring the woods, picking wildflowers, and sharing meals that felt more like family gatherings than casual outings. But as their bond grew, so did Olivia's apprehension. She had been hurt before, and the scars of Neil's betrayal lingered in the corners of her mind. Could she trust herself to love again? James, sensing her hesitation, never pushed. Instead, he let their connection unfold naturally, showing his care through small, consistent gestures, like bringing her favorite tea on rainy days or repairing a creaky window in her room without being asked. One afternoon, while the children played outside, James approached Olivia with a nervous energy she had never seen in him before. "Olivia," he began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about you, me, Mia, and Tommy. And I know life hasn't been easy for either of us, but I want to build something together. Something real." Olivia's heart raced as he pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "I'm not asking you to decide right now," he continued, "but I want you to know how I feel. I love you, Olivia, and I want us to be a family." Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she took in his words. For the first time in years, she felt indeed seen and valued, not as someone who had to prove herself, but as someone worthy of love. She placed her hand over his, her voice trembling with emotion. "James, I don't need time to decide. I love you, too. And I want us." As they embraced, the children cheered from the porch, having witnessed the proposal through the window. The wedding was a modest affair, held in the village church and attended by nearly every resident. Dr. Matthews gave Olivia away, his joy evident as he watched the couple exchange vows. Despite her initial reservations, Brooke stood by Olivia's side as her maid of honor, a testament to how far their relationship had come. The reception was a lively celebration filled with music, laughter, and heartfelt speeches from the villagers. James' nephews, Tommy and Mia, declared themselves brother and sister with pride, sealing their bond with a mischievous apple cider toast. As the night wound down, Olivia and James stood together under the stars, looking out over the fields that had become their home. "This place," Olivia said softly, "has given me everything I didn't know I needed. A purpose, a community, and now, you." James kissed her forehead, his voice filled with quiet conviction. "And we'll keep building it together." Months turned into years, and Olivia's life in the village flourished. The paramedic station grew with the support of new sponsors, transforming into a small but well-equipped clinic that served not just the town but the surrounding areas. Dr. Matthews, though retired, remained a beloved figure in the community, often visiting the clinic to share stories and offer guidance. Brooke eventually moved to the city, pursuing a career that allowed her to grow professionally while maintaining her connection to the village. She visited often, her visits marked by a warmth and camaraderie that Olivia had come to cherish. As for Olivia and James, their blended family thrived. Mia and Tommy grew up surrounded by love, their laughter echoing through the village as a constant reminder of the joy that had taken root there. One evening, as Olivia and James sat on the porch watching the sunset, Mia joined them. She was now a teenager with dreams of becoming a doctor like her mother. "Mom," she said, her voice filled with wonder, "did you ever think we'd end up here?" Olivia smiled, her heart full. "No, sweetheart. But sometimes life takes us exactly where we need to be." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the village, Olivia knew this was more than a new chapter. It was the story she had always been meant to live.